what is happening in Ukraine is a typical Putin murder spree. He did the same thing in Syria. Do you remember a few years ago when, it was 2-3 years ago, when the Russians went to the support of the dictator of Syria, al-Assad? And these dictators love each other, you know what I'm saying? And what Putin ordered was mass murder, hospitals, orphanages, children's homes, people's houses. Putin is, like Trump, an amoral killer. Trump did not give a goddamn when 500,000 Americans were dying of COVID. Putin doesn't give a shit how many people died because of his policies. But the guy who I'm going to quote here, the Associated Press mentions him. He is still, right now, living in a tent, this guy, in a little rebel-held pocket of Syria. And in Syria, the rebels are the good guys, just like in Ukraine, just like in most countries. His name is Ahmad Rakan, and he is following news of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And one of the reasons, he says, is because more than 2 years ago, a Russian airstrike destroyed his home in a nearby village during the several months long, went on, it seemed like it was going on forever, a Syrian government offensive backed by Putin's firepower that drove this man, Ahmad Rakan, from his home, and tens of thousands of other Syrians the same. This guy is quoted by the Associated Press as saying of Ukrainian civilians currently under Russian bombardment, this guy said, quote, "We, more than anyone else, feel their pain," end quote. This attack by Russia against Syria has been going on, actually I misspoke, it's been going on for 7 years. And the massive attack and the indiscriminate killing ordered by Putin has gotten mass surrender deals. There are now military police across Syria, Assad's goons. And what Putin has done is practically rendering Syria a Russian outpost on the Mediterranean. And observers, military observers, say that Russia's just brazen military intervention in Syria and the impunity with which it was met, there was no resistance. These are people who had been tortured and murdered by the dictator al-Assad for years and years. But this made Vladimir Putin just beside himself. It made him bold. And these observers say that it gave Putin a renewed Middle East foothold where he could continue to try to assert Russian power globally. And it paved the way for this attack on Ukraine. Folks, let me tell you, we're in a world of shit. We really are. There's so much going on that is negative, that is life-destroying, not life-affirming at all. And we have, within the human family, I hate to say family, but we have these aberrant monsters like Trump, like Putin, like al-Assad. The list goes on, like Bolsonaro, like Orban in Hungary. These monsters, these fascist monsters, who eventually will fall on each other. I mean, the fascist monsters eventually turn on each other. But for the time being, they're a unified force to destroy everything decent and good and pleasant and pleasurable on Earth. You know, one of the biggest drivers of global warming are military vehicles and the filth that they spew into the air. We knew this came to understand this back in 91, 92, when George Herbert Walker Bush ordered the first invasion of Iraq. And it was pointed out that these military vehicles, whether they're used in Iraq or Syria or the United States, they're a big driver of global warming. Anyway, a Syrian journalist and a senior diplomatic editor for Syrian affairs at the London-based Al-Sharq al-Aswat newspaper in London, this guy, his name is Ibrahim Hamidi. He said, quote, "There's no doubt that the Russian intervention in Ukraine is an accumulation of a series of Russian military interventions in Georgia in 2008, Crimea in 2014, and Syria in 2015. And this editor, journalist, senior diplomatic editor, I should say, he added, Putin believes that America is regressing and China's role is increasing and Europe is divided and preoccupied with its internal concerns, so he decided to attack Ukraine. This is another bit of the heritage of 4 years of this filthy pig subhuman Donald Trump. Now, Putin's decision in 2015 to get involved in the war in Syria was Russia's first military action outside the former Soviet Union since that organization collapsed. And the Russian intervention saved al-Assad's government, saved Bashar al-Assad's ass, and turned the tide of the war in al-Assad's favor, which allowed al-Assad to brutally reassert control over much of Syria. And it was Russian airstrikes, indiscriminate airstrikes against hospitals and schools and markets, which is exactly what this fucker is doing in Ukraine, even as I'm sitting here blabbing. The war-ravaged country that became Syria was used as a testing ground for Russian weapons and tactics that it's now using in Ukraine. I mean, the thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people who were killed in Syria, butchered, brutal, I mean, just fucking completely blown to pieces. And there wasn't that much focus on it in the American media. And Putin knew this. And now he's launched this horrific genocidal move against Ukraine. Anna Borshevskaya, who's a senior fellow at the Washington Institute, it focuses on Russia's policy toward the Middle East. And she said that Russia is deploying what they call a multi-domain approach in Syria, including these long-range precision weapons and large-scale bombing campaigns, which means carpet bombing, along with cyber warfare and disinformation and lies and deceit and paramilitary force. This is what Trump, 4 years of Trump, got started in this country. And this is what's waiting for us if this filthy son of a bitch or any of his scum get elected, Trump. Miss Borshevskaya said that, quote, deploying air power has come to define Russia's evolving way of war, and Syria was an especially important illustration of this development, end quote. And Putin also showed a weird, sick diplomatic touch in Syria. He created arrangements with the West that forced an implicit acceptance of Putin's intervention. And the United States is partly responsible for this, as are our European allies. Because what Putin did, he created these joint patrols with NATO member Turkey, which backed Syrian rebels And that was used to enforce truces in some area. The very people that Putin wanted killed because al-Assad did. Putin, being the diabolical fuck that he is, like Trump, set up these special arrangements. And Russia also established understandings, is what it's called, with Israel, that allowed Israel to carry out airstrikes against Iran-linked targets in Syria. So, Turkey, Israel, Russia, the United States, Western Europe, all have the filthy blood, not the filthy blood, but the blood of the Syrian people on our hands. We do. And you and I don't know anything about this. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.